Hey friends, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a video dedicated to my 2023 goals as well as a TBR kind of video. We're going to be talking about different goals that I have set for myself for my channel this year, just in terms of reading and also like some YouTube focused goals and different things like that. I'm also going to be showing you my whole TBR that I have for this year, which is not too many books, but it's still a significant number of books and some manga as well that I'm hoping to get to this year. If you are curious, I am going to have an extended version of this video for my Patreon where I'm going to be also talking about some personal goals, and I have 12 different personal goals that I'm hoping to achieve this year. And so if you'd like to see the full extended version of this video that includes some of my own personal goals, then I'll have that linked down below so you can go and check it out. But yeah, I do have many goals for this year in terms of like YouTube and reading that I'm very excited about. However, before we do jump into today's video, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Bright Cellars for sponsoring today's video. Bright Cellars is one of my favorite brands to work with because trying new wines is a hobby of mine. I really love trying new wines. And I feel like, you know, with it being New Year's and all, I feel like a lot of people make resolutions that are about taking away things from their life. You know, I feel like a lot of resolutions are focused on like what we can cut out of our lives, but what about adding new things to our lives and adding things that make us happy? Like trying new wines frequently, I think is a great New Year's resolution to have. And with Bright Cellars, they make it so easy to try new wines all the time. After you take a quick 7-question quiz, they match you with wines from all over the world curated to your taste palette. It's really great because they send the wine directly to your door so that you're not having to leave your house, you're not having to spend hours at the liquor store browsing through the different wines trying to figure out what you might like. I'm also a huge fan of the fact that with every wine you get through Bright Cellars, they send you these education cards, which are so helpful, especially if you're not an avid wine drinker. It has all of the main notes of like flavors on the back of the card, which is really helpful. It lets you know like the right serving temperature, and it lets you know what it's paired best with, because some wines are paired better with like sweet foods and then some wines are paired better with spicy foods. Like the more you know, I feel like I'm learning so much about wine every time that I get these bottles from Bright Cellars. Bright Cellars has a concierge team that will be very helpful to you. If you have any questions, you can just ask them. And also, it's really nice because with every box that you get from Bright Cellars, you can rate the wines that you got, and that way on the next shipment, they can get even more accurate to your taste of what you're looking for. This time around, they sent me this rosé bottle that is the Color Fast, and this one has notes of strawberry, cranberry, rose, and orange blossom, and this was absolutely delicious. Like, I'm a huge rosé girl, like rosé is delish. I'm also a huge fan of the Spriggan rosé. This one's a long-time favorite. I also am really looking forward to trying this Silverscape and the Ochavato. I feel like both of these bottles are so beautiful, and I'm always a huge fan of the different labels because I actually really love when they send you these like label and education cards. I love just putting these up on my bulletin board because these are beautiful. Thank you so much once again to Bright Cellars for giving my followers a limited time offer of $50 off their first 4-bottle box. Click the link down in my description to get started, and thank you so much to Bright Cellars for sponsoring today's video. It's sponsors like Bright Cellars that make it possible for me to create the content that I do, so by supporting Bright Cellars, you can be directly supporting my channel. So thank you so much to Bright Cellars, and now let's get on to the goals and the books, shall we? Jumping into my channel goals for myself this year, I have 7 different goals that are related to YouTube and related to my reading for this year. The first goal that I have for myself this year is to hit 90,000 subscribers on YouTube, which I know sounds crazy to even say out loud and to put that into the universe, but right now at the time that I'm filming this, I have 81,000, and so that would require me to gain at least 9,000 subscribers this year, which I think is doable. Hopefully. I don't ever want to put any kind of pressure on myself when it comes to these kind of numbers, because at the end of the day, I know it doesn't really matter, but I also think it's good to set goals for yourself. And this is just something that I'm hoping that I can make happen this year, but I won't be absolutely devastated if it doesn't happen, because I am so grateful for every single person who is subscribed to my channel, and the fact that I have 81,000 right now is a freaking miracle, and I never take that for granted. My second goal for myself this year is to have a book troop pick be a 5-star read. This is a goal that I've actually had last year as well, because I've had my book club for 2 years now. I haven't had a book be a 5-star book yet for my book club. And like, if you're wondering, yes, technically last year in the month of December, I had Daisy Darker as a pick, which was a 5-star book for me, but it was also a reread for me. So like, I went into that book knowing that it was going to be a 5-star read. I'm just wanting to pick a book book for my book club that I haven't read yet and then have that be a 5-star reading experience. Like, is that too much to ask? I don't know if I'm just like really terrible or have really unfortunate luck with picking books for my book clubs. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I just think it would be really cool if I could have a 5-star read this year. I feel like this year it's gonna happen, and I know it's like I said that last year and then it didn't happen last year, but I feel like it could happen this year. Like, I'm so hopeful. I feel like it could be one of these upcoming books. The third goal that I have for myself this year is something that you might have seen in my January TBR video, because it's going to be a Patreon picks my TBR jar that I do every single month. So basically how this works is that I asked my Patreon in December to give me a bunch of different prompts that would impact my TBR every month in the new year. And every month I'm going to be drawing 2 or 3 of these out of the jar per month, and then I have to find books that fulfill those prompts. So all of these prompts are really interesting things. I mean, my Patreon came through, like there's over 150 different prompts in here. There's a bunch of different things that are like, you know, read a book that's outside of your comfort zone, read the longest book on your TBR, or read a book that's been on your TBR the longest, or certain things like that. But then there's also some that are like really unique and really fun that I would have to like get the help of other people. Like there's some that say like read another booktuber's favorite book, or like go to my local library and ask my librarian for a recommendation. Like there is some really interesting stuff in here, and I just feel like this is going to be so much fun for my TBR videos this year, to be, you know, pulling books out of this jar every single TBR video. I think that'll make the videos so much more exciting and like interactive, but also I feel like this could really push me out of my comfort zone this year to read books that I wouldn't normally pick up otherwise. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's really fun, you know, because I know it's intimidating sometimes to read stuff that's out of your comfort zone, but it's also something that I want to continue to do. And so I'm really excited about this idea, and if you're wondering if you would like to contribute to any of these prompts, I will be still looking through that Patreon post at the end of every month, and then I'll be like, you know, printing and cutting up the rest that were added. So like every single month, all of the ones that got added that month will be added to that jar to pool for the next month. So I will have that Patreon post linked down below if you would like to contribute any future prompts for this jar. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this jar. I think it's going to be really fun this year. Next goal is going to be to read at least 50 mangas this year, and I feel like this is a totally realistic goal for me, you know, because last year I read 42 mangas in the entire year, but I read my first manga in May of last year, so like technically I read 42 mangas in the second half of last year. And so I feel like reading at least 50 manga this year should be no problem at all, and I'll be letting you know about some of the manga that I'm hoping to get to this year once we hit the TBR part of this video. But yeah, I'm really excited to have discovered a newfound love for manga. I just think manga is so much fun, and it really like motivates me to read, you know, because they're so easy to get through most of the time, and they just make me so freaking happy. My next goal is to read at least 10 nonfiction books, which this is another goal that I feel like I should be able to reach, because this isn't something that I usually actively think about. In the last few years or so, I think I read like 11 or maybe 15 nonfiction books for the whole year, and usually that's not something that I'm like actively trying to do, is to like stay on top of the nonfiction books. But I do feel like it would be good for me to make a goal of at least trying to read 10 nonfiction books, because I feel like those are the books that I usually prioritize the least, or that I just don't really care. Like I don't put in a lot of effort when it comes to thinking about reading nonfiction books, but I feel like I should try to prioritize reading nonfiction more in a way, just because I feel like nonfiction books can be just as insightful or sometimes even more insightful than reading fiction books. But my thing with like nonfiction is that I don't like to read, you know, self-help books. So I'm just talking very specific nonfiction books here. You know, after loving Wild last year as much as I did, I'm like just open more to the idea of reading more nonfiction books that can just be really inspiring for me in a lot of ways. Like I feel like last year I read so much good nonfiction with like Wild, and like I'm Glad My Mom Died, Crying in H Mart, We Were Dreamers. Like I was just reading some really inspiring nonfiction books last year, and so I feel like that's just really motivated me to want to pick up more nonfiction. All right, my next goal is going to be to do at least 5 to 8 unique or creative kind of reading vlogs this year. And what I mean by like unique or creative is just something that's kind of outside of my normal reading vlogs, if that makes sense. So I did have this as a goal for last year, because last year I was working on reading vlogs that were like reading books like a Capricorn and reading books like Stranger Things. And then I also did those videos that were like reading Korean thriller and horror books, or reading Japanese thriller and horror books. And those kind of videos were really fun for for me because they were kind of outside of my normal reading vlog, which is just, you know, either me reading anticipated releases or me reading the new like thriller and horror books or backlist thriller and horror books or whatever it is. And I feel like it would be so fun to just experiment more, you know, and try different things with reading vlogs. I feel like the reason why I hesitate to do it so much is because when it comes to, you know, views on my channel, I've noticed that the videos that do the best are the videos that are just the simple things like reading 3 new thrillers or reading the new horror books, because those I think are the videos that people enjoy the most from me. But I also don't want to let the views hold me back from trying different things and doing new things on my channel. It's just hard, you know, to balance things when YouTube is what you're doing full time, because it's like, of course I want to do what I want to do, but I also have to consider like this is now my business, right? Like this is my job, this is my income. So I also do have to take that into consideration when working on certain videos, because it's like, is it worth putting all this time and effort into this video if I don't think it'll perform very well on my channel? It sucks that I have to consider those things now, but that is the reality of what I'm doing on YouTube right now. But I would like to do at least 5 to 8 kind of unique, creative, different kind of reading vlogs this year, and I already have a few planned that I'm hoping to get done, and I'm so excited about it. And then my last like channel goal that I have for myself is to try and do some like travel reading vlogs this year, like maybe 2 to 3. I'm not trying to like make this a regular thing, but you know, I've just been so inspired by, you know, especially by my friend Gavin. He has been doing these reading vlogs that are so cool, where he'll like go and visit a city and like read books in that city that are either like inspired by that city or like it makes sense to be reading those books in that city. And Gavin's videos are just always so inspiring to me, and I've always thought to myself like that is something that I would love to do at some point, is to do just like even like road trip travel vlogs in my local area and do, you know, like, oh, reading books that take place in Seattle, or like, you know, reading books on a road trip that are about road trips, or, you know, just something that would like make sense and it would work, but like incorporate some kind of traveling vlog into a reading vlog in some way. I feel like that's something that I would really love to attempt to do this year. So I would like to do at least 2, maybe 3 of those this year. I'll just have to see how this year goes. But I feel like that's something that just looks so fun and that I would really love to do. Then I also did want to talk about my TBR that I have for this year. I did make my TBR for this whole year a little bit smaller than I have in the past, because, you know, in the past I have not actually read every book that was on my TBR, because, you know, I did a video reacting to my 2022 goals video. If you missed it, it's on my Patreon, and that video, honestly, it was a little embarrassing because of how much I did not follow through on like almost half of the books that I put on my TBR. And so this year I'm trying to keep my TBR a little bit more smaller and a little bit more realistic for what I actually hope to read this year. And because I'm doing the whole, you know, TBR jar, I'm hoping maybe I can fit some of these books into these prompts. Like that would be cool. The first book on my list is Never Let Me Go, which this is a book that I've just been hearing about for a long time now. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews for this, but I also know a lot of people who really love this book, and this one's kind of like a sci-fi romance dystopian kind of book. I don't really know too much about it, to be honest. I know that it was turned into a movie, which this is actually the movie poster that you're seeing here, and the movie stars Carey Mulligan, Andrew Garfield, and Keira Knightley. So like, what the heck, why have I not seen this yet? I don't know. But this is one that I'm just really curious to read, and I do have some TBR kind of videos planned that this could work into a few of those videos. So like, this one will probably for sure be happening this year. I also would love to read Yoke this year. This one is a young adult contemporary novel that's about these 2 sisters. I've been hearing such great things about this book over the years, and I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I just feel like it's been a long time coming. Like, I need to read this. Also, isn't it so cool because her hands connect? Do you see that? Do you see there's hands on the spine of this book? Like, oh! The next book that's gonna be on my list is Catherine House, and I know I'm holding this up and some of you are probably like, what the fuck? How have you not read Catherine House yet? I've just been hearing so much about this over the years. The description says it's a seductive, gothic-infused debut of literary suspense set within a secluded elite university and following a dangerously curious, rebellious undergraduate who uncovers a shocking secret about an exclusive circle of students. So I mean, it does sound like something I would enjoy. I don't know why it's taken me so long to pick up Catherine House, but this year it's happening. I'm also hoping to read Out There by Kate Folk this year. This is a book that I meant to get to last year, but I just never got around to it. And this one sounds so interesting because it's a sci-fi collection of short stories. And I've heard, you know, this one getting compared to Black Mirror. I'm just very intrigued by the type of stories that will be in this. And I feel like I really do want to try and prioritize some more short story collections this year. And so hopefully this will inspire me to do that because this looks incredible. And also this cover is one of my favorites. I just love the colors. Oh, it's stunning. And then I am also hoping to get to Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby this year. This is a thriller that I've had on my TBR for literally forever. You know, this is the same author as Razorblade Tears, which was one of my favorite thriller books. And so that's why this is his backlist book. And so this is one that I'm hoping to get to. I know S.A. Cosby also has a new thriller book publishing this year. And so hopefully I can get to this one before the new one comes out. And then also, Circe. Yeah, I know. I haven't read this book yet either. And I feel like this is one of those books that's always really intimidated me because I'm not really big into like Greek mythology and like those types of stories. Like they've just never interested me. And I was actually considering unhauling this book recently, like at the end of last year, until I saw Kayla read this book. And Kayla was also saying that she doesn't really like Greek mythology. And you know, the book Song of Achilles or whatever, that was a book that was like super hyped, and I only gave that one like 3 stars I think, or like maybe 4 stars, but I just didn't love it the way that everyone else seems to be loving it. But then Kayla felt the same way I think, and then she ended up really loving Circe, like so much to the point where it was like a 5-star for her, I'm pretty sure. And so it just has me kind of curious, like okay, maybe I can read this book even though I don't usually like Greek mythology and still get something out of it. And so I'm hoping that this can be something I can read this year that's like slightly out of my comfort zone, but maybe I'll love it, like I don't know. And then I would also love to read this other book that's really outside of my comfort zone because it's The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and this one is a kind of like low-key fantasy book, I'm pretty sure. It says, The City We Became tells a revolutionary story of culture, magic, and myths in contemporary New York City. I've heard that this one has some fantasy elements, and I know that this is an author who writes a lot of fantasy, and so I've always been kind of nervous and like pushing this one off, but this is one of my goddamn favorite book covers of all time, and I just feel like this could be something that I really love because it seems like the New York City vibes are going to be very strong in this one, which just makes my heart happy. So I feel like I need to get to this at some point this year, even though it is really outside of my comfort zone, but it's like, it's so beautiful. And then these last 2 books, these are so goddamn embarrassing. Like if I don't read these 2 books this year, then I'm unhauling them in 2024, mark my words, because these have been on my TBR for so long that if I don't read them this year, like I'm ashamed. Because the first one is Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance. This one has been on my TBR since October 2017, like over 5 years, almost 6 years, what the fuck. And this is one that I've always been really curious about, but again, it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and so that's the main reason why I have not yet picked it up, because I'm scared. But this one is about this man who was like raised by wolves, and he's the proud owner of a horned pig named Merlin. There was like a tornado that happened, and then like weird things started happening. I don't know, it's like, it's magical realism and like a touch of fantasy, I think, but I've heard so many great things about this story. I've just heard that it's so wonderful and it's so beautiful, and I've always just been so curious about it. I'm not even gonna lie though, I think part of the reason why I've kept it for so long is because of this cover, because I am obsessed with Starry Night covers. Like that is one of my top favorite things on a book cover ever. And so I will read this year, like it will happen. All right, and then the last book that's on my TBR that if I don't get around to reading this year, I'm gonna be so embarrassed, because it's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. And this is a book that, once again, I've had this on my TBR for years, not quite as long as this one, but this one I've had on my TBR since 2019 when this book came out. And I feel like there's just no excuse for why I haven't read this yet, because this book is fairly short. The writing looks pretty easy to get through, like there's a lot of space within these texts here, and there's just no excuse for me not to read this book. I've been wanting to read this book for so long now. I just know that this is like a beautiful literary fiction, and I also just recently read a poetry collection from this author in December, and I really enjoyed the poetry collection. So now there's even more of a reason for me to pick this up, because this is an author that I have read before and have enjoyed before, and I really think this could be something that I will love. And so I do have some temporary plans right now to read this for a specific reading vlog that I'm thinking of working on later this year. So right now, unless the plans change, I do have plans to actually read this book this year, which would be awesome. I also do have quite a bit of manga, you know, on my TBR for the year of 2023, which would include Death Note. I would love to get more caught up on Death Note because at this point in time, I've only read the first 2 volumes that were in the first collection. This is the second collection that has volumes 3 and 4. I would love, you know, to get more caught up on Death Note because this is a series that I really love. I'm also hoping to finish the Sweat and Soap volumes this year. I'm currently reading volume 6 right now, and then I have up to 11 volumes to read this year, so hopefully I can get to these because I just love the Sweat and Soap series so much, so I have no doubt that I'll be able to finish these soon. I also do have The Promised Neverland volume 1. This is one that I bought that I'm hoping to get to at some point this year. This one sounds really interesting, and like it's gonna be a little bit outside of my comfort zone because it's a little fantasy-ish, I've heard, but I'm also really excited to check it out. I'm also hoping that I can catch up on the Blood on the Tracks manga series that I'm reading. I think I'm on volume 5 right now, and I think there are 11 or 12 that are currently published volumes. So I'm hoping to catch up completely on the Blood on the Tracks manga because this is one of my favorite series. This is like a thriller horror series that's about this mom and her son and their weird relationship and their weird bond. And then I'm also really curious and wanting to start this one called Given. This is like a series that's like it's like male romances about this, like these guys that are in a band together. I don't really know anything about this, but I've heard great things. So this is a series that I'm wanting to start this year. And then also possibly the Alice in Borderland manga series because I've been really obsessed with the Alice in Borderland TV show that's on Netflix. They just had a second season go up in December and we watched it all within like a week. Like it was such a good second season and it just has me really curious about the manga because I know that the show is based on a manga. I've seen them at Barnes & Noble and I do think that my library has them. So I'm also curious to check out the Alice in Borderland manga series this year. But yeah, those are all of my official, you know, TBR and goals for my channel this year. You'll have to let me know what are your goals going into 2023 as far as like reading or maybe like YouTube if you're also a content creator. What are some of your goals? Also let me know what are some of your TBR plans for the year. Like do you also have a bunch of TBR that you're like, I need to get to these books or I am embarrassed? Also, if you are curious, you know, as mentioned, I am doing an extended version of this video for my Patreon that's going to include a lot of my personal goals as well, which I have 12 personal goals that I kind of go into very extensively for like a long time talking about my personal goals. So if you would like to see that video, I will have that link down below so you can check it out. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.